I returned home from overseas unannounced and found out that my wife was heavily pregnant with another man's baby. My wife blamed me for this, saying that I wasn't always there for her and the kids, and added that she wanted a divorce. I told her I understood. But by the time she realized what I had set in motion, she broke down in tears. But was it truly her fault? Or did I do something that pushed her to betray me? Keep watching to find out. Permit me to start from the beginning, because the ending will make no sense without understanding how deep the knife went in. My name is Emeric Dalca. I'm 68 years old now, living quietly beside a lake in the town of Truckee, nestled deep in the Sierra Nevada of California. Back then, I was 46, working as a petroleum engineer in the Middle East's most dangerous drilling sites. I was married to Alara, who was 35 at the time, and we had been together for 12 years. We had 2 young sons who barely knew their father's face because I was always chasing the next high-paying contract. The money was incredible, but the cost was everything else that mattered in life. During my longest assignment, a 3-year offshore rotation, I made what I thought was the ultimate sacrifice for love. I left my family behind to secure a payout that would change our lives forever. Over $1 million that would set us up for retirement. Communication was limited to brief phone calls and video chats when the satellite connection worked properly. I sent money home consistently, believing every dollar was building the foundation for our dreams together. Then the rumors started reaching me through colleagues who rotated back to the United States for their breaks. 2 different workers mentioned seeing my wife around town, and both noticed something that made my blood run cold. They said she appeared to be heavily pregnant, her belly round and full like a woman approaching her due date. The math didn't make sense at all, and I felt my world beginning to crumble beneath my feet. I hadn't touched Alara in nearly 2 years since starting this particular contract assignment in the Middle East. The timeline was impossible unless something terrible had happened while I was gone, sacrificing my life for our future. My mind raced through every possible explanation, but none of them brought any comfort or peace. Without telling anyone at the drilling site, I secretly booked a flight back to the United States. I needed to see the truth with my own eyes before making any accusations or jumping to conclusions. The 15-hour journey felt like an eternity as I imagined every possible scenario that could explain what I heard. When I finally arrived in California, I came up with a simple plan to verify the rumors without letting anyone know I was in the country. I called Alara and made her believe I was still at the offshore site in the Middle East. I told her I had sent her a UPS package and gave her a fake tracking number. I said she had to pick it up herself and that her signature was absolutely required. She agreed to pick up the package, completely unaware that her husband was in town. She had no idea I was already in town. I had secretly positioned myself in a rental car outside the UPS office, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel, hoping desperately that the rumors were wrong about everything. Maybe the colleagues had mistaken her for someone else, or maybe there was some medical explanation I hadn't considered. When I saw her pulling off her car in the parking lot of the UPS office building, my entire world collapsed in that single moment of recognition. Her belly was enormous. She was clearly pregnant with a child that couldn't possibly be mine according to any calculation. She moved slowly, one hand supporting her lower back in the way pregnant women do when carrying extra weight. There was no mistaking what I was seeing. My wife was about to give birth to another man's baby. I sat in that rental car for what felt like hours, unable to move or think clearly. The woman I had sacrificed everything for, the woman I worked those brutal shifts for, had been building a new life while I was gone. Every birthday I missed, every anniversary I spent alone on an oil rig, every lonely night under foreign stars, all of it had been for nothing. I didn't confront her at the UPS office because I couldn't trust myself to remain calm in that moment. Instead, I drove straight to a nearby hotel and checked into a room where I could think clearly. For 3 days, I stayed in that small space, staring at the ceiling and replaying the image of Alara's pregnant belly over and over again. My phone rang constantly during those 3 days, but I couldn't bring myself to answer any of her calls. She left several angry voicemails, demanding to know why I had given her a fake tracking number for the delivery. She accused me of playing cruel pranks on her and insisted that I owe her an apology for wasting her time. The irony of her anger cut through me like a blade. She was upset about a fake delivery while carrying another man's child. Looking back now, I realized those 3 days in the hotel room changed something fundamental inside me forever. I had trusted Allura completely, believing that marriage meant protection from the kind of betrayal I had experienced before. When I was 36, working my first overseas contract in Venezuela, my own cousin had cheated me out of a joint land investment. That betrayal taught me that silence could be a weapon in the hands of people you trust most. But I had convinced myself that marriage was different, that love created a shield against such deception and pain. Now I understood that my wife had been using my own resources to cushion her new life with another man. Every dollar I sent home, every sacrifice I made in those brutal conditions, had been supporting her affair. She had been planning my replacement while I was breaking my back to build our future together. This wasn't just about money or even the affair itself. It was about dignity and respect. I had missed birthdays, anniversaries, school plays, and every important moment in my son's lives for this woman. I had poured my soul into building something we could all be proud of when I returned home. And she had spent that time creating a new family with someone else, using my absence as her opportunity. On the 4th day, I finally called my old friend the Los Ren, someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. The Los had worked with me during my early drilling days before becoming a financial strategist in his later career. He was sharp as a knife and had a reputation for seeing through people's motivations. When I told him what I had discovered, he listened without interruption until I finished the entire story. The Los asked me several pointed questions about the timeline and Allura's behavior during our recent phone conversations. He wanted to know why she hadn't mentioned the pregnancy to me, especially since she was so far along. His analytical mind started working through the implications of her silence and the timing of everything. Then he shared his theory, which hit me like a punch to the stomach and made perfect sense. The Los believed that Allura had planned to give birth before I returned from the 3-year contract overseas. She knew I would be receiving a massive payout when the job ended, and she intended to file for divorce immediately afterward. This would allow her to claim half of everything I had earned while she was building her new relationship. The pregnancy had to remain secret because revealing it would expose her affair before she could secure her financial future. She was using my own sacrifice as the foundation for her escape plan, and I would have walked into the trap completely unprepared for what was waiting for me at home. The Los asked me one simple question that changed the entire direction of my life going forward. He asked if I wanted her to feel the same pain and betrayal that I had experienced in that hotel room. The question hung in the air between us like a challenge, and I found myself nodding before I could think about the consequences. Something inside me had broken during those 3 days of silence, and I wanted justice for the years I had given up. Without any prompting from me, the Los offered to help me turn the tables on Allura in a completely legal way. His plan was brilliant in its simplicity, and it would make Allura feel exactly what I had felt in that hotel room. The Los suggested that we transfer all of my assets into a trust under his name before I returned to complete my long-term contract in the Middle East. The house, the offshore accounts, retirement funds, and even the pending $1 million payout would vanish from any legal connection to me. On paper, I would appear completely broke because the possibility of a divorce was becoming evident. But as we worked through the details over the next 5 days, something began eating away at me from the inside. I found myself lying awake at night, staring at hotel room ceilings and questioning everything I thought I knew about right and wrong. What if there was some explanation I hadn't considered yet about the pregnancy timeline? What if Allura had been scared to tell me something important while I was so far away? The logical part of my brain knew the math was impossible, but the heart doesn't always follow logic. What if she had tried to protect me from some painful truth that I couldn't handle from thousands of miles away? What if there had been some medical situation or complication that made her afraid to burden me? These thoughts tormented me, even though I knew they were probably just wishful thinking from a broken man. But then I would remember her angry voicemails about the fake delivery, and the doubt would disappear completely. If there had been even a small piece of honesty between us, she would have told me about the pregnancy herself. Instead, she let me send money home every month while growing another man's child inside her body. She allowed me to make plans for our future while she was already building a different one entirely. Still, a whisper of uncertainty remained as I signed the legal documents that would make me invisible financially. Was I seeking justice for the years I had sacrificed, or was I simply trying to make her bleed the same way I had bled? Had the pain of betrayal turned me into something cold and calculating, just like the people who had hurt me before? These questions followed me everywhere, but the trap was already being set in motion. After finalizing everything with the Los, I quietly returned to the Middle East to complete my contract and begin the next phase of the plan. Now, before we proceed, it's very important to say that if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. By liking, subscribing, and even leaving a short comment of where you are watching from, you are helping me grow this channel so that other people can find this video and learn the graceful wisdom tips that it offers. I share real stories from people who face tough situations just like this. These stories aren't just for entertainment. They're meant to help us learn and grow wiser. We can sometimes become vulnerable, and that's why it's so important to learn from the experiences and mistakes of others. Together we can protect ourselves and protect each other through shared wisdom. Now back to our story. When I arrived back at the drilling site, I returned Allura's calls and explained that I had been in an area with no network coverage for several days. I told her the delivery situation had been a mix-up with the shipping company, and I apologized for any confusion it had caused her. During our conversation, I never mentioned that I knew about her pregnancy or that I had seen her with my own eyes. The next part of the plan required perfect timing and a performance that would convince her I was truly desperate. I would call Allura and tell her there had been a fatal accident at the offshore site involving an insurgent attack. I would explain that the job had collapsed, the company had gone under, and the $1 million payout was completely gone. Then I would tell her I was returning to the States as a broken man with nothing left to show for the 2 years of sacrifice. This lie would reveal her true intentions when she believed there was nothing left to gain from our marriage. 3 weeks after returning to the drilling site, I made the call that would change both of our lives forever. I told Allura about the fake attack, the collapsed company, and the lost payout with as much desperation as I could manage. I explained that I would be coming home the following week as a failure who had lost everything we had worked for in the last 2 years. Her reaction was everything the Los had predicted it would be, and it crushed the last bit of hope I had been holding on to. 3 days after that phone call, Allura called me back and said she wanted a divorce immediately. She blamed me for being absent during the most important years of our marriage and said the job I had sacrificed for our family had given us nothing in return. She accused me of putting work above the emotional needs of our children and herself. And she said she couldn't continue living with a man who had failed so completely. I stayed silent while she listed all of my shortcomings as a husband and father, then simply told her I understood her decision. After hanging up, I requested permission from the site manager to return to the States to handle my personal crisis. They agreed, but explained that leaving early would reduce my final payout to slightly less than the full amount. I accepted the reduction, knowing that the money was already safely hidden anyway. During the flight home, I couldn't stop thinking about a woman named Daisla Moro, who had helped me decades earlier with legal paperwork. She was now in her 60s and semi-retired, but she had built a reputation for finding legal oversights in family court cases. When I reached out to her, she agreed to help without asking too many questions about my situation. Daisla had her own history with betrayal that made her sympathetic to my cause and willing to assist. Her husband of 18 years had left her for his secretary when she was 52 years old, taking half of everything they had built together. She understood the pain of being replaced by someone younger after giving the best years of her life to a marriage. When she looked at my case, She saw her own chance for closure and justice. But not everything went according to plan, and that's when the real test of our strategy began. A week later, I returned to the United States quietly, and Alara had already filed for divorce by then. She was confident that she would get half of our assets, the house, and probably alimony, since she believed I was now broke and desperate. But when we appeared in court, her confidence began to crumble in ways she never expected. The judge reviewed the financial documents that Dalca had carefully prepared, and confusion spread across the entire courtroom. There was nothing legally in my name anymore, no house, no savings accounts, no retirement funds, no assets whatsoever. Alara's face went pale as she realized that there was nothing left for her to take in the divorce. Her lawyer scrambled to find some explanation for how a man could lose everything so completely in such a short time. She demanded answers from me, but I gave her none during the proceedings, just as she had given me no explanation about her pregnancy. But Dalca discovered something midway through the legal process that could have destroyed our entire plan if we weren't careful. Alara's lawyer was pressing hard to find hidden assets, and they had uncovered a paper trail that might expose the financial transfer to the Los. We were racing against time to keep our strategy from being revealed to the court. I had to make quick decisions and adjustments that I hadn't planned for, but somehow we managed to keep everything together. Eventually, I won the divorce case, but the victory felt hollow in ways I hadn't expected when we started this journey. When Alara realized she couldn't take anything from me financially, she shifted her focus to the one thing she could still control. She filed for full custody of our 2 sons, knowing it would legally force me to pay child support despite appearing completely broke. Her lawyer built a case around my frequent absences and unstable work conditions over the years. In court, the emotional argument about my absence swayed the judge more than I had anticipated it would. Though she didn't win full custody like she wanted, she was granted shared custody along with a modest monthly support order. It wasn't the financial outcome she had originally planned for, but it gave her a piece of control over my life that she could use to punish me for the revenge I had carried out. Although the revenge had landed exactly as planned, but the victory felt completely empty for me now. I had won the game we were playing, but not without a cost that would haunt both of us forever. It wasn't until months later, during one of my scheduled visits with our sons, that I learned the complete story. When I went to pick up the boys from her new apartment, I asked her directly why she had done what she did. That's when Alara opened up about years of buried pain that I had never known existed between us. She reminded me of something I had tried to forget from early in our marriage, before we had children together. During a short work rotation when I was 36, I had a brief affair with a local woman in Venezuela. It was a foolish mistake that I owned up to, apologized for, and believed we had moved past completely. Alara had said she forgave me, and we never spoke about it again after that conversation. She told me that she had never truly healed from that betrayal, even after all those years had passed between us. She added that as the years went on and I took job after job overseas, the distance became unbearable for her in ways I never understood. Every time I left for months or years at a time, her old wound would reopen with fresh pain. My absence wasn't just physical. It reminded her constantly of how replaceable she had felt during my affair years earlier. The house felt colder when I was gone, and our boys would ask why their father was always away working. Slowly, her bitterness had turned into the kind of loneliness that makes people do desperate things for attention and validation. She told me that when another man began showing her the consistent attention and emotional availability that I couldn't provide from overseas, she didn't resist his advances. Not because she no longer loved me, but because she felt forgotten and abandoned by someone who had already betrayed her trust once before. Her affair was her way of reclaiming some control over a marriage where she felt powerless and invisible. Hearing all of this, I didn't feel rage or satisfaction about the revenge I had carried out against her. Instead, I felt something much worse, a complete understanding of how we had both contributed to destroying our own marriage. In her pain and loneliness, I finally saw my own part in the story that led to this moment. I had been so focused on being the victim of her betrayal that I never considered how my own past actions had planted the seeds for everything that followed. But by then, it was too late to undo the damage we had both caused to each other and our family. Looking back now from my quiet lakeside home, I realized that revenge and justice are not the same thing at all. I got exactly what I planned for, but I lost something much more valuable in the process: the chance to understand and forgive the woman I had once loved more than my own life. And that's the truth that keeps me awake at night, wondering if I became the very monster I thought I was fighting. Now, there are two important things I need you to help me do. The first important thing is, if you enjoyed the story, there's another one you really shouldn't miss. It's about a wealthy elderly man whose 3 children secretly tried to kill him. The children believed that their father was too old, so they locked him up in a hidden room at their family mansion and hoped he would die of starvation. The plan of the 3 children was to quickly share his $50 million assets for their inheritance. But by the time the 3 children found out what their father had done with his will, it was already too late for them. If you're interested in seeing this story, you will see a video appearing at the top right corner of your screen shortly after I mentioned the second most important thing that I need you to help me do. The second important thing is, I would love you to like this current video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments about the story we just finished. And even if you don't want to share your thoughts, just let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to see how far my videos are reaching. Now, without wasting your time, hurry and click the video at the top right corner of your screen, because it won't be there for long. Trust me, you don't want to miss the story about the wealthy elderly man and his 3 children who tried to kill him and forcefully take their inheritance. See you in the next video, and until next time, keep living with grace and purpose.